All right, let's get started. On to session number one. I'm delighted to introduce Janet Bayliss, America's Customer and Growth Market Leader and CMO Practice Leader at EY. Janet's got a big job. She leads EY's consulting professionals in the Americas, focused on the customer agenda and revenue growth, including marketing, sales, digital, and customer experience. Janet also leads EY's CMO practice. Janet is a close and expert observer of macro trends in the consumer and B2B marketing world. Let's join her as she shares new personas for the new now.
Beth, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here. It's truly a privilege to be a part of the ANA 9th Annual Conference. So we can talk about the new normal or the new abnormal. I'm not sure what's more appropriate, but clearly we are in a new now. And so what we thought we'd do is start the conversation today by talking about personas and thinking about humans and human behaviors, attitudes, psychographics, and what really drives our emotions so that we can understand what is going to drive human behavior as we think about being great marketers in this incredibly unusual moment. Because ultimately we want to drive decisions, we want to drive actions. And so whether you are a B2B marketer or perhaps we have some B2C marketers among us, I hope you take away some ideas on what is changing around human behavior and what is a temporary change, and also what might stick, because so many of the changes we see around us are likely quite permanent and will sustain long after this particularly unusual moment. So let's jump into it. We go to the first slide. What I'd like to do is open with a quote from someone I'm sure so many of you know and admire, Carla Hassan. Carla is, of course, the Chief Marketing Officer of Citibank. And Carla and I had the opportunity to speak. Actually, we recorded a video over the course of this summer. We did it socially distanced for a series with Forbes. And we talked about a number of things, but one of the quotes I absolutely loved that she shared with me was, she said, "This is one of the things that makes me so most excited about marketing. We are the voice of the customer. We have been their advocates. We are the closest to understanding what's going on in the zeitgeist." And I think it really encapsulates what's so important right now, because as she talked about so many things about digital transformation at Citibank in that conversation and what had happened since COVID had started, she really was speaking about circumstances changing extremely fast, and that in this particular moment, we have to keep our ear to the ground, and that marketing isn't just listening for marketing. Marketing is listening for the entire organization. And so really marketing has been elevated in so many organizations because we must all become great listeners. We must all really understand all of the changing dynamics around us so that we can act appropriately, think appropriately, communicate appropriately, and be in a position to be great marketers to drive the outcomes that we seek. So as we go to the next slide, what I'd love to do is open with some research. Actually, if we go back one slide, this is our EY Future Consumer Index, and this is our listening effort at EY. We actually started this at the beginning of the pandemic, and we've actually done 5 waves of research so far. The latest wave of research actually looked at 14,500 people and was in 20 countries around the world. And the reason that we're looking at this over time is we're looking at these transversal trends so that we can look at what is actually a fundamental shift versus a temporary reaction, what's different in one country versus another, looking at where one country might be a leading indicator for another part of the world. And it's been incredibly informative to us as we really seek to understand human behavior. And so while so many of the folks who are watching today are likely B2B marketers, the reason that I find this incredibly informative to B2B marketing is because fundamentally we are all human. And so a consumer index to me is particularly informative to help us understand these broader trends of human behavior and attitudes and psychographic tendencies. So as we go to the next slide, let's start with one of the things that was actually alluded to in the opening, which is the physical world and how our attitudes are changing around how we feel about it. So what's fascinating to me here is if we look at the attitudes towards traveling on a plane or going to an event or going to a place of religious worship, going to the gym, cinema, etc., what's fascinating to me is the remarkable discomfort that people anticipate having in attending these live or experiential moments. And I will tell you, because I've been looking at this research over time, that the discomfort factor, the light blue part of the bars, has actually gotten larger over the course of the pandemic. So as opposed to us sort of accommodating and getting more comfortable, actually going the other direction. And so as marketers, we probably have a few implications we could take away from this. Number one, it has profound implications for how we need to think about our customers interacting with the physical world and the future of customer experience. So for a B2B marketer, we might think about what the implications are for virtual sales or how we need to accelerate our digital marketing activities. Certainly, it has incredible implications for events, trade events, and we're already experiencing a virtual event right here. And of course, in the B2C world, as safety and efficiency become profoundly important in the psychology of so many consumers, we really have to think so differently about the interaction between the physical retail environment, the digital retail environment, and perhaps how they need to dovetail together, not just omni-channel and what we want in each of those channels and how they can perform individually and collectively, but how they need to dovetail together, how they create a hybrid experience, perhaps how my mobile device actually enables me to navigate a store experience not only more efficiently, but more safely so that I can get through that store experience more safely and more quickly. These are new things for us to contemplate as we reflect on the lasting impact of what's happening around us. As we go to the next slide, I'll offer a few more insights from our Future Consumer Index. Here, I will share some facts around some of the values that are emerging as we look at these 20 countries around the world. Values that people are expressing as important to them as they make choices around the brands that they buy and the things that they consider to be important as they consider whether or not they're willing to pay a premium. Things like sustainability, trust, ethical sourcing, social responsibility. And as you can see, the things with the yellow arrows are the ones actually, the values that have actually trended upwards since the last wave of research. And you can see a blend of both those value-based words like sustainable products, but you also see things that have to do with more convenience or choice or affordability oriented elements. So there's a combination of both consumer-oriented indicators as well as brand value indicators that are commingling in the psychology of human choice right now. Personal benefits and values coming together in the decisions driving consumers. And frankly, in this particular category, it's changing so quickly that I think we're going to have to keep a very close eye on this. In the summer, at the time of the social unrest, when that was peaking, I can tell you that the brand values were expressing themselves in a far more profound way. And now the balancing is coming back to more of an equilibrium, which I think is quite interesting. As we go to the next slide, let's look at some of the psychographics that are emerging from the pandemic. There are 5 new psychographics that are coming out of the pandemic. Over half of the consumers we talked to, over half of the humans, and I really like to use the word humans because when we think in terms of audiences or consumers, I think we forget that at the end of the day, we are always talking about individual humans making individual choices. Over half of those humans with which we are trying to communicate, with whom we're trying to communicate, are making choices based on being a part of 2 psychographics. The first we call affordability first. For these consumers, they're really looking to live within their means and their budget. They are not buying things that they can't particularly afford, and they're really making pragmatic choices based on those economic considerations. If we look at the second category here, quarter of the respondents we would categorize as health first. So they're really looking to protect themselves and their family's health. And I think as we look to the leaders of businesses, they're likely to protect the employees of their company and the people on their teams. And so health is really guiding their decision making. And then there's essentially a reasonably equitable distribution between three other categories of psychographic consideration here: planet first, society first, and experience first. So, planet first, very interesting at this particular moment. They're trying to cut waste and their impact on the environment. They're really focused on the values around sustainability and climate change, and that's really what speaks to them. The second one that was in that those buckets is society first. They're really working together for the greater good. They buy from honest, transparent organizations, and they're really focused on those values. And then that final category there, one that comprised 12%, is a particularly important and interesting one. They're really living in the moment. They're looking for experiences to get the most out of life, perhaps traumatized by this extraordinarily traumatic moment that we are in. And they are looking for customized products and services that really maximize the experience of life in this moment. Again, that's 12% of the psychographics. So 5 psychographics to consider. So whether you are B2B or you are B2C in your marketing focus, hopefully that gives you 5 new psychographics to think about as you think about your customer. So I want to echo the theme of this conference and think about truths. And so as we go to the next slide, I'm going to share with you 10 truths for marketing, old and new. And I think the old ones are still true, but they are reinventing themselves, much in the same way marketing is constantly reinventing itself. And I think the new reinvention truths are perhaps even more interesting than the old truths that we are so familiar with. So let's go to the first of our old and new truths. The old truth would be that marketing begins with knowing your customer. I'm sure there's no one in this audience who would take any issue with that old truth. Now, the new truth might be that marketing begins with knowing your customer segment. So what does that mean to know your customer segment? I think the days of looking at a customer segment in a 2x2 matrix where we look for the quadrant in the upper right and hope to identify that are long gone. We have more data at our fingertips than ever before, and so we can run much more sophisticated analyses than ever before to really understand the clusters and cohorts of segments, looking at far more variables than ever before simultaneously to allow big data to truly allow us through analytics to identify not only clusters and cohorts we did not even know existed of our current and prospective consumers, but then also to go look at those customers and then identify what are their needs, how are they making decisions, what are their buying patterns, what's the context for their choices, what are the insights we can bring to a solution-based sell to not sell the products we want to sell, but solve the problems that they have and the issues that they're most concerned about. Let's go to our second truth. So go to the next one. The old truth might be you are competing with your competitors. Seems reasonably self-evident. Let's look at the new truth. The new truth is you are competing with the last best experience your customer enjoyed. And this is a particularly profound insight, I believe, because right now the bar is higher than ever. If we think about it, the bar continuously rises because the human experiences around us are being shaped by all sorts of things that continuously cause human expectations to go up. We're in the 5th wave of computing, which drives smart connected products. People expect those smart products to be connected and know more about us. COVID-19 has rapidly accelerated digital transformation for so many companies. And with that comes the expectation that we've provided data as customers, and therefore we should know more about our customers and provide a better experience to them. Of course, D2C brands may not necessarily take share from the large-scale enterprise brands immediately, but they do an exceptional job of hyper-personalization. And in those cases, we have to ask ourselves, does that set a new expectation around what we can do? And then, of course, Gen Z grew up with technology. And so when we think about it, what is not shocking at all is when Forbes shares with us that only 8% of consumers receive the experience they expect, we have a long way to go to deliver experiences that meet the expectations of our customers. And so we have to bring data, technology, the art of the craft, and creativity all to the fore together to really meet that customer expectation. That's the new bar. And I would argue if we're a B2B company, those B2C experiences are actually often setting the bar for the frictionless experience that our customer expects from us. Let's go to the next truth. This one's a bit fun. The old truth is that courting customers is just like dating. You know, meet, go to a bar, perhaps go out to dinner. But the new truth is that courting customers is actually a lot like online dating, perhaps. It's no longer spontaneous. It's a lot more engineered. It's no longer serendipitous. It's data-driven. It's no longer about brand marketing. It's a lot more performance marketing driven. And certainly in this pandemic moment, it is not face-to-face, as I'm sure we've all enjoyed reading articles in a variety of publications. A lot of it is not face-to-face, it is virtual. And so I'm sure there are lots of cultural implications of this. But if we think about this as marketers, one of the biggest trends happening right now is that media and CRM are coming together. And the companies that are most aggressively growing at this particular moment are bringing those two things together. They're accelerating their first-party data, and they're bringing their media strategies directly in contact with their CRM strategies so that their CRM strategies and the way they think about their customers and manage those relationships enables them to buy media more effectively. And so they can bring that brand and performance marketing in direct contact so that the strategies hang together and obviously use data, no matter whether we're talking about top of funnel or bottom funnel activities. If we go to the next truth, one could certainly argue that customers must sit at the heart of or customers hope that you have what they want. This is a straightforward one. Customers hope that you have what they want. And if we go to the new truth, it would be that customers expect that you know exactly what they want. Customers expect you know exactly what they want. That's a high expectation. It's a high bar. Now, why do they expect that? Again, let's go to this point about first-party data, and which, by the way, will only accelerate with third-party data declining as cookies go away in January of 2022. So with that being the case, we have to use data more effectively than ever before to power human experiences, be it B2B or B2C. So what dimensions of human experience can we power? I call it the 4 C's. Community, things like what events we bring them, virtual, physical, or otherwise. Commerce, what kinds of physical retail or digital commerce experiences. Convenience, things like loyalty or incentives or offers, and certainly the content we present to people. The goal is to make the experience relevant, personalized, not overly personalized because that can be creepy, but relevant, frictionless, anticipatory, and it's all fueled by data. And as digital transformation continues to accelerate, the expectation is that with the data that we have in our hands as companies, those experiences do become more relevant, frictionless, and anticipatory than ever before. Let's go to our next lesson. So the next truth might be that customers must sit at the heart of the marketing strategy. That's the old truth. But the new truth might be that customers must sit at the heart of the customer journey. And so whatever your customer journey looks like at your company, and certainly I don't presume that this one is representative of how you think of things, generally speaking, the customer journey goes far beyond marketing. It may start with something like acquisition, which is where marketing is traditionally thought of at the demand gen end of the spectrum. So what gets the right people to us? But it goes beyond that. How do we engage them? How do we convert them? How do we retain them? How do we get them to be loyal and advocate on behalf of our brand? And increasingly, we have to think about how we can make the seams of our organizational charts and our operations invisible to the customer. Because regardless of the touch points that the customer may have with our organization, the customer doesn't care whether that part of the organization reports to one part of our team or another. And so it's incumbent on all of us to enable that customer to truly sit at the heart of a seamless customer journey. So whether the signal comes from a chatbot that's part of customer service, or it's truly something that's part of marketing's direct domain and control. The art of the new seamless customer journey is to connect all of those dots and really put them at the heart of that experience so that we truly practice customer centricity. Let's go to our next truth. So I think we would all certainly argue that relationships matter. It's pretty straightforward. That would be the old truth, but the new truth might be that relationships are everything. I think we all are probably doing more of this looking at a screen thing than ever before. We may have some Zoom fatigue. We've done plenty of or more remote selling than we ever thought we would ever do before. We've suffered the death of the steak dinner. I don't know about you, but I'm missing the joy of being able to take a client out to dinner and enjoy a conversation face to face. We're experiencing virtual events, and of course, the production values are quite extraordinary now, but it feels different. We don't have the opportunity to shake hands. In some ways, it's strangely more intimate. We get to invite people into our homes and have a different kind of a conversation, but we have to build trust in new ways. We have to be more focused on solution-based selling. We have to be more focused on listening. We can't necessarily read the physical room. I'm starting to say we now have to read the Zoom instead of reading the room. And so we really have to be particularly attuned to the issues of our customers. And although the relationships really matter, I would say those of us that have those relationships, they're more valuable than ever. And to build new relationships with new customers, of course, we have to really be extraordinarily solution focused to do that, so that we focus on what the needs of the customer are, as opposed to the benefits of our products and capabilities as sellers and marketers. And while that's always something that we preach, it's something that is harder to always put consistently into practice across sales and marketing organizations. So let's go to our next truth. The old one might be that agility is a development approach, right? Technology organizations certainly talk about this all the time. I would argue that COVID has taught us that agility is a marketing approach, and we're practicing it across creative, marketing, budgeting, the way we wire clients to agencies, decision-making, crisis management. We have to move faster than ever before, and there's no question that we are doing that. And so I would argue this is a new muscle that we have to have. We cannot make decisions in a static way. We have to be able to turn on a dime, and COVID has certainly taught us that. Globally, nationally, regionally, all the way down to locally, we must practice marketing agility. Go to our eighth one. The old truth might be that your brand should stand behind great products. And the new truth would be that your brand should stand behind great brand values. Going to the point from the research before, brand values more than ever, they matter more than ever before, because we are living in a cancel culture. We have a lot of people who are switching brands. We're able to try new things. So our loyalty is really perhaps not where it used to be. And so this is a moment to really make sure that your values stand where they are, that you're managing reputation as effectively as possible so that you can drive that loyalty no matter what happens. I'm going to go to truth number 9, which is that the old truth might have been that marketing generates leads for sales to close, right? Generates the lead, warms it up, and throws it over the fence to sales. But the new one, marketing and sales are inextricably intertwined. And of course, I'm referencing a B2B marketing and sales organization. One might even argue, and this is controversial, but marketing thinks about paid, owned, and earned media. Is sales the fourth channel? Do we use our sales channel as the fourth means of reaching our customer? And should we start to think about these things holistically? Perhaps a bit provocative, but we've got to bring marketing and sales closer together, more close than ever before. And our 10th and final truth, let's bring that up. The old one would be pretty straightforward. Marketing is important for growth. That would be the old one. But the new one is that marketing absolutely sits at the center of the growth agenda for the entire C-suite. And going back to Carla's quote that opens the conversation, there is no question that marketing has been elevated in the C-suite, really bringing people together, being the voice of the customer, helping drive the digital transformation agenda together with the CIO, the CTO, the CFO. There is no question that marketing sits at the heart of the growth agenda for the full C-suite. So in closing, what I will leave you with these old truths and new truths is the notion that as the pandemic progresses, these new truths may become old truths yet again, because we're going to have to continually challenge ourselves and continue to think about how things will evolve. But we're all learners and express tremendous humility, because moments like this certainly make us humble and challenge us all to be our best selves, continuously learn, and hopefully become even better marketers than we were before. I really thank the ANA for the opportunity to be with you today, and I look forward to answering your questions as I'm rejoined by Beth back on the virtual stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janet. That was amazing. I loved how you touched on just the human aspect of the people that we talk to every day. It's easy to forget that when you're in the midst of everything, but it is so crucial to everything we do, from the relationships that we're gaining, the values that we're driving, the culture, and then of course the journey and how they get to what they really need. With the time that we have, I do like to share one question. Do you have any sense from the research of how long it will take the discomfort around the research to recede?
It's really not clear. I mean, what I found a little bit disheartening, frankly, around some of the attitudes towards the physical world is that, as opposed to declining over the waves of the research, they're actually increasing. So I think, as marketers and as creators of customer experiences and brand experiences, it really is going to challenge us to rethink. And of course, we're also dealing with a bit of polarization in terms of attitudes on this as well. So I think we have to look, you can look at the numbers in aggregate, but then we also have to deal again with customer segmentation, because I do think with underneath the hood of the numbers, there are quite different attitudes towards all of these things, which certainly we've seen manifest itself in the political environment in the United States. So I think overall, the overall trend, and certainly globally, would suggest that the attitudes towards the physical environment will sustain themselves for some time to come, unfortunately. And then I think, as it pertains to the US, I think we have to acknowledge that it's going to vary very widely by segment and certainly by geography.
Thank you so much, Janet, for coming and being with us today. Truly so insightful. I loved how you broke it down by the 10. I definitely have them written down and will be referencing them myself. And I'm sure many people online here with us today will be doing the same. Tom, over to you for our next session. Thank you so much again, Janet.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Beth.